here I am with just a script, an iced coffee, and a dream. I never expected my Anatomy of Pixar's Cars video to take off in the way that it did, especially considering how unhinged and deranged it became towards the end.
Do you think God stays in heaven because he too lives in fear of what he's created?
If you didn't watch that video, you should, because this video is going to repeatedly reference that one. What I'm going to do today is try to expand my Cars theory and look at the franchise from a wider lens. In my first script, I only focused on the Cars movies and a TV show, excluding Mater's Tall Tales because I couldn't cognitively handle taking those episodes into account. My first video covers how the Cars seem to physically function, but this one zooms out and tries its best to catalog how the Cars' wider universe works. I'm talking politics, religion, economics, species, natural order, and anything else I could glean from this world. First, here's a really quick summary of the entire Cars franchise.
It's about drive.
Alright, so that's all you really need to know. Yes, I'll be covering Cars 1, 2, and 3, the limited short series, Cars on the Road, and yes, Mater's Tall Tales. Dear God. Mater's Tall Tales, you know what? There are aliens, there are cars in space, there's time travel, there's just too much going on. If Mater's Tall Tales is canon, it's only canon because for the entire duration of the episodes, Radiator Springs must have had a massive gas leak. That's my only explanation. I'll also be including Planes and Planes Fire and Rescue, since these movies are also a part of the Cars universe, even though I had absolutely no knowledge of their existence until y'all pointed that out to me, so thank you. The first Planes movie is an underdog racing story that copies almost everything from Cars 1, while ending with strangely out-of-place military propaganda. And then there's Planes 2, which is, let me check my notes. A movie where the young protagonist suddenly realizes he's terminally ill and has to retire from his racing and finds passion in helping others through fighting massive forest fires, making friends along the way, and literally saving lives when there's a gigantic raging inferno in the woods that injures the fire chief and he has to near sacrifice his own life before narrowly surviving, and then enters rehabilitation with all of his loved ones surrounding him as he finds new passion for firefighting. Oh, but he gets fixed at the end of the movie, so it's all fine. Probably just goes back to racing. Cool. Let's address my original theory. I argued that taking into account everything we see in the movies and the TV series, the Cars aren't automobiles, but rather half mechanical, half organic life forms similar to hermit crabs that consist of soft innards and a hard outer shell for protection. A theory that was similar to MatPat's original insect theory and heartily inspired by Jake Parker's wonderful illustrations, but slightly different because of the fact that Cars seem to have a lot of leeway to be pummeled and crushed without significant threat to their life. They get brutalized and literally just walk it off. Thus, hermit crab theory was born. I found some extra supporting evidence to it recently because I found that there are a bunch of deleted scenes and shorts from the Cars franchise in one of the deleted shorts episodes called The Nightmare. This short would have included McQueen getting his engine ripped out of him, and since they're storyboards, I can't tell for sure what these things are, but I thought that they were like organic sinews being torn from his car body. They might be something else, I don't know. My hermit crab theory has holes, I will admit. Let's do a bit of revisionism on the Anatomy of Pixar's Cars hypothesis before we jump into the universe of Pixar's Cars. Number one, the mouths. I didn't see anyone call me out on this, but this has been plaguing me since I published the video. If the Cars are really hermit crab-like with outer shells that protect their innards, then how come the metal around their mouth fluidly moves when they speak? It's a really small detail, but it made me do a double take when I watched my video back because I genuinely overlooked it. The only explanation I can give is that their outer shells just give way to a soft, malleable material the closer it gets to their mouth. Or, you know what, maybe their inner organs combined with the heat of their engine is so freaking hot that the metal around their mouth area is like semi-melted so they can fully move their mouths. That would also explain why McQueen, as a race car, has this window to let air into his body when he's racing so it doesn't get too hot on the inside. Thank you to everybody who explained that to me, by the way. But RIP to all the other race cars who don't have that feature. Anyway, I'm truly at a loss for a solid explanation of how their mouths morph while their body is solid metal, so let's count it as hermit crab theory flaw number one. Hermit crab theory flaw number 2 is a pretty big one, and I'm also surprised I didn't see any comments about it. Not to say there aren't any comments, I've read like 2% of all comments on that video, but I never actually explained the way that I think the cars reproduce. I mentioned something like build a baby, where you order a kid from FedEx essentially, but that wouldn't work because at the end of the video I argue that these are shells that cover a real organism that grows. So where does the original soft-bodied lump of a child come from? I really glazed over that in my first video. I think the cars have to produce sexually. I'm so sorry to say, but I don't know how they do it. They're not mammals. The thought of them popping out eggs through their tailpipes is so disturbing to me. The FBI is going to bust down my door. The FBI is going to bust down my door because I just said Pixar's cars have to lay eggs through their muffler. I could just say this shit on the internet. Free speech should be taken away from me specifically. I'm just saying, look me in the eye and tell me that you would know what a pregnant car looks like. You can't. Anyway, those are the 2 biggest things I wanted to just briefly make mention of in this video. There are a ton of tiny small things I saw in the comments like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen, derogatory, and this is the worst thing I've ever seen, appreciatory. So anyway, let's start this video.
Ready?
I'm not super brushed up on my everything in the world, so you know, maybe this video can't really go super deep into the sociological, economical, intersectional implications of the inner mechanisms of sentient transportation society, but I can give you some nicely organized sections of the things I noticed throughout all of these movies and episodes. The Cars world is similar to ours. It's clearly Earth with the same continents and oceans. When you zoom in, their cities have the same highways and infrastructure as ours do, albeit with a few minor changes, mostly those made to buildings to accommodate the size of the vehicles, like how a lot of entryways are full garage-style doors now. It's worth noting that although some of the cars and trucks can be all-terrain vehicles, most of them prefer to stick to paved roads, highways, and inner cities. But there are also other species in this universe that are locked out of those areas due to their anatomy and style of movement. Boats can't casually stay in a hotel for cars, but then again, semi-trucks also can't easily enter buildings that cars can. So the municipal planning of the Cars universe isn't that great if you're not a car. Go figure. I'm not sure how buildings have been reinforced to be able to hold tons and tons of weight on every floor, since, you know, cars are rolling around in there, but okay. Everything has the exact same name as recognizable places in our human world. There are maps that label the Americas, Europe, Asia. In planes, we get name drops of Shanghai and Mexico City. There are also the same landmarks like the Great Wall of China and the Taj Mahal. On a smaller level, in Cars, there are clear shots of arenas that take place in Los Angeles or Florida. So the Cars universe has the same continents, same countries, same states or prefectures, same cities as our human world. Accordingly, there are also accents that the Cars can have based on their region. Southern American accents, Canadian accents, British accents, German accents, Japanese, Italian, Jamaican. The most notable difference between our IRL human world and the Cars universe is the suspicious lack of natural and organic life form, or the suspicious inconsistency of it. Grasses and forests can grow with no problem. The Cars universe also does grow crops, mostly corn, so fully organic plant life can thrive in this universe, but flowers can't. Every time we see a flower, it's fake. It's made out of brake lights or some other car part, but cacti can grow because it's in the first movie and it has real spikes that hurt. Except in one episode of Cars on the Road, there are what looks to be real, recognizable roses used pretty generously in this one wedding. So maybe those are artificial roses, maybe they're real. Either way, it seems like things can grow from the soil, provided that they're cultivated by car farmers. The Carmers. Another odd thing is the physical landscape formations in the Cars and Planes world. There's Carburetor Canyon, that's the home of Radiator Springs, which has masses of rock that are shaped like fenders, and in Planes, the surrounding area has plane-shaped formations. I don't think these are naturally occurring. There's no way. I think these formations are a man-made, vehicularly made creation, like a Mount Rushmore type deal. The main town in the Planes movie, Cropwash Junction, is shaped like an airplane. I think the vehicles are more than capable of terraforming to mark their area as being either car settled or plane settled, which makes me wonder if there are some oceanic volcanic land masses out there that are shaped like boats or something. Going back to crops and agriculture, it's clearly stated and shown that all vehicles drink some type of oil, but also sometimes have to have gas or fuel pumped into their tanks. The movie Planes shows how vehicles tend to grow corn in order to create ethanol, something that we practice here in our real human society as well. Oh, after further research, on second thought, maybe it's not the sleigh that I originally thought it was. But oils can vary, because the hippie van sometimes brews his own organic oils, or his own experimental oils. In Cars 3, as part of Lightning McQueen's merch line, they're selling Lightning McQueen kombucha, which is advertised as fermented oils. Ew! And what's worse is I thought it would be called kabucha, because his catchphrase is ka-chow, but no, they just called it karbucha, which is arguably worse than my idea. For some reason in Cars 3, the old-timer cars say that they ran moonshine illegally, like as an alcohol. Is there alcohol in this universe, or is that just some type of illegal oil mixture? Enough about oils, let's talk about the really confusing stuff. The only crop we fully see being used is corn, but in Japan, there are potato chips, so somewhere they're growing potatoes, and there's also wasabi and sushi, and somehow restaurants advertising chopsticks as their logos. How the hell would chopsticks even function in this world? We see one British plane drinking tea, so somewhere a country is growing tea leaves. I'm pretty sure Mater mentions ice cream at one point in the movies, and German cars have pretzels. And there are forklifts picking rice in China. In Cars 2, this evil gang of lemon cars meets in a room where they just have stacks of lemons on every table. Like, are these real lemons? Are they fake? I can only assume the human-like foods in this world are considered upper-class rare delicacies, since we mostly see it when McQueen and Mater are flying first class, when they're at an uber fancy— oh, Uber. Okay, alright. That was actually a very funny accidental pun, but it was a really good one. Anyway, the wasabi and potato chips are seen being served at a very exclusive, very high-class party lounge for world racers. But food doesn't seem to be exclusive in Germany, which is just tossing around pretzels at a normal-ass bar, so I guess certain countries don't care about making and selling human food. Is human food just pure junk to cars? Does it give them zero nutrition? Can they even digest it properly? Who knows? This is a pretty big section. Here's a comprehensive list of vehicles. Cars, forklifts, campers and RVs, trucks, buses, ambulances, monster trucks, forestry mulching machines, boats, planes, helicopters, cranes, blimps, tractors, combine harvesters, bulldozers, and of course we can't forget aircraft carriers, warships, and space rockets. I think a cancelled shorts episode was also going to throw in motorcycles. Literally every vehicle type appears in this franchise except for submarines for some reason. There's not a clear evolutionary hierarchy among the vehicles, because yeah, there are a lot of boats and planes that don't have speaking lines in the movies, but I'm pretty sure that almost every vehicle in the universe contains a level of sentience. I think cars and other vehicles probably identify themselves obviously by their name and voice, but also maybe a VIN number or some sort of manufacturing serial number, maybe even a license plate. And lastly, sometimes they mention their brand. I still don't really know what that means. Like if a car rolls up to you and it's like, I'm Benjamin, my VIN number is 12345, and I'm a Mercedes. Like, what does the Mercedes part mean? Is that your lineage? But then Benjamin could easily say, yeah, I'm Mercedes and I'm a Canadian. So your brand is not your nationality, but it can't be your family line because vehicles have first and last names. So families are presumed to be grouped by the surname. So does your brand just mean nothing? No, clearly brands have a significance in the car world because when McQueen sees Sally, he's immediately like, oh, a Porsche, how sexy. You must be a rich lawyer, which already suggests a caste system. And Luigi and Guido are gay for Ferraris. So like, my only conclusion is that cars are the same genus, but the brands of cars have to be different species. Like every car is a vehiculus, but Mercedes cars specifically are vehiculus Mercedeses. I don't fucking know. Then that would mean we'd have to classify other vehicles by like how many wheels they have or something, like, or how their engine is structured, or even something as simple as size. Like, what's the taxonomy of the Cars universe? Let's go through the vehicles that we have the most information on and just bring up some fun questions. Just some really fun observations and questions. Number 1, the wildlife. Yes, technically in the Cars world, there is no wildlife, except for yes, there is. Tractors are treated like cows. They moo, they can't speak, they have limited cognition, they're easily spooked, and they run around wherever they want. They have literally no other purpose but to eat grass. But for some reason, unlike every other vehicle we see in the movies, tractors don't need to drink oil, they just chew grass, which shouldn't be how they function. Do they also not need gas either? Are they extremely refined tractors that can just convert grass to oil? Besides tractors, combine harvesters and bulldozers act like bulls, but in the third movie, there are these things which act sentient because they're plowing the fields in clear lines as if they're working. Are these animals? Are these sentient trucks just doing a job? Kind of like how McQueen strapped Bessie to the back of him and paved the road? Where's the fine line between an excavator, which isn't an animal, and a bulldozer, which is an animal? These are real questions. Wait, hold on. What is Bessie, like, ethically? She has a name, but she's not alive, but she's clearly got an engine, and she has every moving part except for eyes and a mouth, so why is she not a living machine? Are they keeping a cadaver in Radiator Springs and hitching the body to the back of themselves and dragging it along the roads? I mean, it's a poor town. Maybe this is what they've had to resort to. As I said earlier, Mater mentions ice cream, so that exists. In fact, there are ice cream trucks, but the cows in this world are tractors, so where's the milk coming from? Besides the tractor cows, there are also John Deeres that are literally supposed to be deer, which I found very funny and cute, until I wondered what their purpose is at all. And how do they populate? Do factories make a bunch of cows and deer and release them annually for no reason other than to just keep the grass cut around the world? But there's no way these tractors are immortal, so how come we don't see a bunch of decommissioned animals everywhere in the forest? Unless there are park rangers out there who travel the woods looking for broken down tractors to repair their parts, like a catch, rehabilitate, and release situation. Well, good luck to those do-gooders, because at some point in the third movie, there's a billboard that advertises hunting. Who's out here shooting the tractors? We never see lawnmowers anywhere in this universe, but would they be sentient? And not to mention that they have sushi. There are no live fish in these oceans, is there? Not with the amount of oil spills that are probably happening on the reg. Oh, but guess what we do see? In Planes, Fire and Rescue, Roombas. Sentient Roombas with eyes, sucking up dirt off the floor. What the hell are these? Are these rats? Are they pets? What about the tiny Volkswagen Beetle things? What about the planes that are birds? And from the first Planes movie, there is a horrifying wooden plane toy that is a bird with a nest. Somebody make that make sense, because it's out of my hands at this point. And at some point, Cruz in the third movie mentions crabs. So there are real crabs somewhere in this world. Are they auto crabs? I don't know. Number 2, the cars. Who makes the car shells? Do cars work at a place where they make new cars? How would they feel about that? Or have cars outsourced this to other machines? Are there robots in this world? Like if there's a manufacturing plant with like machinery building cars, then would that machinery that builds the cars also be sentient too? What are the parameters for a machine to become living? Are businesses like Nissan and Ford being revered for their work? Like, are these places considered sacred? Or is it just another day at the organism factory? And if cars do produce sexually, and they now have a baby that needs a shell, do the parents have to stick with their own manufacturer? Is there like a buy one get one free deal where a parent can cash in a coupon to get outer skin for their child as long as they stick with their own brand? Why couldn't you make your kid a Ferrari? Is it just insanely expensive to buy a Ferrari shell? Or is the Ferrari factory operating like a damn monarchy in that you can only become a Ferrari if your parents were one? Or is it like a referral program? Do you have to know one to be one? How do you even tell what age a car is? Like, Cruz calls Lightning McQueen old, but does anyone even know how old he is? You can't see his mileage. At what point do you become a full-fledged adult? Do you need to hit 18,000 miles to be considered an adult? Well, in some countries, that age might be a little lower. That's all I'm just saying. Number 3, forklifts. These are perhaps the most competent and capable vehicle in the Cars universe, also known as the crutch that the animators use whenever they realize that cars don't have hands. Forklifts do everything. Them having little arms is treated in the Cars universe like humans having opposable thumbs. Although for some reason forklifts don't seem to be higher up than cars or more important than them, they end up having all of the blue-collar jobs, and yet no real status in the universe. I at least hope they get paid or something. I think forklifts are like a protected minority in the Cars world, because for some reason, in America, the Statue of Liberty is a forklift. Did they have a working class revolution at some point and demand more forklift civil rights? In the Planes movie, this one forklift is like a live-in caretaker for Skipper, the injured and retired US Navy fighting plane. Don't worry, we'll talk about war later on. But yeah, this forklift lives with Skipper all the time, and he wheels him around, and there's a scene at night where Skipper tries flying, but he can't. And the forklift is there too, cheering him on. So this guy's working around the clock to take care of this grumpy-ass retired man. 2 questions. 1, does he get paid to do this? 2, do you think they've explored each other's bodies? Number 4, trucks. Not much to say about these, because thankfully trucks do have some areas where they can congregate, as in truck stops. There's an entire Cars on the Road episode about it, where they all stop and do a full truck flash mob. They seem pretty happy in this world, and many times we will hear Mac, McQueen's chauffeur, talk about how it's a job for him, so I guess they are getting paid to transport cars, but is this not body horror? What are trailers to a truck if they can just easily detach them? Is it like a rickshaw situation? So can they feel when cars are inside of them? I guess not, because Mac drove hundreds of miles in the first movie without McQueen in the trailer, and he never noticed. Also, this is kind of brought up in Cars 2, when a lemon car decides to have a tow truck pull him around all the time to conserve his mileage. If I were a rich car, I would hire a truck to transport me literally everywhere to prevent me from having to burn my mileage or my gas. I'm surprised more cars don't do this in the Cars universe. Are there car celebrities out there selling scammy products that promise to roll back your mileage and make you look young again? Wait, there are also buses. Why are there even buses in this? Can the cars get inside? Right, like that means the buses definitely feel them though, right? Is that like a kangaroo pouch for them? That's horrible. Number 5, boats. For some reason, boats have a hierarchy that correlates to size. At least that's as far as I figured, because in Cars 2, big boat intimidates small boat. That's all I know. Boats are also very trigger happy in this world because they're quite violent, unless you're a cruise ship or a sailing boat. Those seem pretty chill. This world is full of cars that drive on land, so how much chaos is happening in the ocean where boats need to be this equipped? I'm not sure why threatening any vehicle with a gun is effective in this world, unless of course, as per my hermit crab theory, every living vehicle has organic matter inside of it that can be harmed. Do boats have a country of origin, or can they just go wherever they want? Can they show up to a random dock and chill there for the rest of their lives, or do they need to pay some sort of water rent? Do they need to sleep? How do they eat? How do they fuel back up? Even today, there are historical ships that are still left over from the 1800s that are just sailboats, like they just rely on sails alone with no engines whatsoever. So are there boats in the Cars universe that aren't powered by anything? Would that make them immortal? Would they even be sentient in the first place if they don't have an engine? Don't even get me started on how stupid the boats look. Look at this. Why are the eyes up here? And oh my god, there's a Navy aircraft carrier in the Planes movie. And at first I thought this thing didn't have a mouth at all, but then I realized that the mouth is all the way down here. Planes just land on its face all day, every single day. This is horrifying. I bet it can't even speak, because if it did, the sound of it would probably deafen everything around it. It would be a mercy to kill that thing and float on top of its hollowed out corpse rather than to let it live like that. Number 6, trains. We don't have much info on trains at all. We see them a couple of times, and I feel sorry for them because even though the Cars world could have easily added a ton of rail lines so trains and trolleys could get around easier and see more of the world, they didn't. So trains are forever glued to whatever tracks will let them go certain places. In Planes 2 Fire and Rescue, there's a train that nearly gets burnt to death. Thankfully it's saved, but oh my god, that thing would have just helplessly rushed straight into its own demise. It can't even go backwards. Just throwing this in here before I get to planes as the last vehicle, but there's also not much on helicopters. They do exist. The second Planes movie has 2 separate helicopter characters, so that's a big win for them. Helicopter Nation, rise up. Also, there are blimps, and my only question is, can they inflate and deflate, and if so, can they feel that, and if so, does it hurt? Number 7, planes. Okay, the only real glimpse of planes we get in the Cars movies are fighter jets or commercial airplanes. I just feel so sorry for commercial planes because they are so gigantic, I bet they can never really hear what the other cars are saying to them, and I know they feel cars roll around inside of them. I just know it. I don't know how they're able to breathe in high altitude, and do they not need sleep? Because sometimes there are 18-hour flights, so do planes not get sleepy? Cars get sleepy. Trucks get sleepy. I'm surprised there's very little air traffic around the Cars universe. Even if planes are a smaller population, you'd think they would still be hopping from one place to another, but the skies are always clear. The Planes movies only added to my list of questions. So Planes 1 is about Dusty Crop Hopper, a small town underdog that eventually makes his way into a Grand Prix air race. Pretty boring and very predictable. Dusty the Plane is a crop duster, spreading fertilizer over fields of corn because his town is all about growing corn and harvesting it to turn it into ethanol. So in this movie, the planes do drink oil like cars, but they also apparently get jet fuel as well, though we never see the way that they ingest the jet fuel. But Dusty's friend, who is a truck, has openly admitted to illegally consuming jet fuel like it is a drug. Is that okay for him? While competing in his big world championship race, Dusty's friends convince him to get his fertilizer sprayer removed so that he can be a little bit faster, so he reluctantly agrees.
This is reversible, right? Oh, hey, you're being careful down there, right? So, What do you think?
Dusty Crophopper was so hung that he had to get neutered just to give him a fighting chance at winning the race. Wait, then what was he- hold on, what was he spraying on the corn? I regret to inform you, but the second Planes movie has a moment where Dusty's internal gearbox gets chipped. And when I tell you the scream I scrumped at my TV when this happened, because they just did an interior shot of this airplane. What are you talking about? Where's the goop? Where's the organs? I am actually so fed up with this. No, no. I know these things are not just machines. I know that they're organic. I did not watch 8+ hours of Cars franchise content and sit there going frame by frame looking at billboards and neon signs and raceway names just for them to flip me off specifically in the very last movie I had to watch with this one 3-second slow-mo shot. I refuse to accept this. I reject it. Yeah, you know what? Maybe that is what his internal parts look like, but I swear this plane is partially organic and I won't accept otherwise. You can't make me. The Cars world is pretty decent when it comes to interspecies symbiosis. Well, symbiosis as in cars are the ones relying on other forms of vehicles for a lot of their needs. They use trucks to get around, they use boats to get around, they use planes to get around, they use trains to get around. You know what? Cars are actually kind of the parasites of the Cars universe. The other species aren't really getting much out of their relationships with cars other than like being allowed to exist among them. Semi-trucks can't roll up into a bar and grab a motorhito. Commercial airplanes arguably do so much for cars in this world, but we barely see them participate in any of the fun stuff because they just can't fit in the arenas. They can't even treat themselves to sushi and wasabi. I think there was actually vehicular segregation in the first two Cars movies, because why else would camper vans not be allowed on stadium bleachers? Even though there were some vans that were literally as small as the biggest cars there. Why were they banished to the fake turf in the middle of the arena? And not even mentioning that there's not a single plane in sight on these bleachers. Even though at the end of the Planes movies, we finally get to see some more diversity because planes are allowed to mingle with cars while spectating a sport. I mean, at least in Cars 2, there are some boats that get to listen to the race happening around them. I don't think they can even watch it, but even the boats have car passengers, and so I guess that's the only reason that they're there. I get it. Planes need wide stretches of road to take off. They have a giant wingspan. I understand, but I feel like we should be seeing more planes on regular roads too. Like, if they just widened the roads, the Cars could have added a specific lane for certain vehicles. Like, wouldn't that be true inclusivity? If Cars really cared about other vehicles, they would have tried harder. I'm sorry, I'll say it, whatever. We probably see the most positive interspecies interactions at the end of Planes 1, where the animators finally allowed commercial planes and cranes to watch some of the aerial shows. I guess bigger vehicles that can't move around very easily are relying on Cars to constantly give them maintenance and upkeep, and I guess deliver their parts when they need it, because I can't see a giant crane cruising into a hospital to undergo emergency engine repair. So I guess if you're a ship or a plane in the Cars universe, you'd better do your job and take little Timmy Toyota over to the frickin' circus so you can earn your next oil change. Do Cars make boats and planes and other vehicles? If so, is that why other vehicles serve them so willingly? Because Cars are like the gods of that world? So if you're a crane, you better do your job well, or else your car overlords will decide to stop making your kind and you'll become outdated. Do you think this world would ever allow for interspecies relationships? Can a van fall in love with a forklift? Let's talk about jobs now. At first I was convinced that certain vehicles were fully restricted to certain jobs. I mean, in some cases, that is true. A crane is really the only one who can do a crane's job, and I'm sorry crane haters, but you've got to give it to them. Cranes can crane really well. Obviously, Cars have perhaps the most professions we see, with them being news anchors, referees, corporate entrepreneurs, surgeons. However, forklifts probably have the widest range of professions. They can be personal caretakers, pit crew members, bartenders, chefs, scientists, etc., etc. But trucks are kind of limited to just being chauffeurs or delivery drivers, it seems. I don't see many trucks in a sound studio recording a hit single. Because again, a lot of buildings aren't even made to accommodate truck sizes. Imagine literally being locked out of an entire career industry because you physically can't fit through their front door for an interview. Here's another thing. How do you retire? Can you switch careers in this world? Doc retired from racing and Skipper retired from being a ruthless killer. So do they get social security checks? Do you have to be injured in some way to permanently retire? Can a commercial airplane suddenly quit their job and go live in the middle of the forest somewhere? Besides the whole retirement question, there are plenty of vehicles we see who don't do the jobs that they were originally made for. There's Miss Fritter, the school bus that has become a derby racer. She's amazing. There are some monster trucks in Mater's Tall Tales, like an ambulance monster truck and an ice cream monster truck. By the way, when Mater asks the ice cream truck for ice cream, the ice cream truck guy starts to turn around and lift his backside. What was he gonna do to give Mater that ice cream? So at least this world isn't as horrible as, hey, you're born, you grow up and you get a shell, you age, and then you change out of your shell, and then one day you'll become an ice cream truck and never live on your own accord. But no, it's more free than I thought. But if these are hermit crabs, then how come a school bus can't get changed out of a school bus shell and go live a life in a forklift body? I don't know. Maybe there's some horrible fusion that happens when you stay inside of a shell for too long. This entire franchise makes no sense. Bottom line is, vehicles don't have to be what they were born to be, or even what jobs they previously chose, but for some reason no vehicle has ever talked about being a different vehicle in the past, so you are stuck with whatever shell you have in adulthood. So God help the boats and the blimps and the rockets, because if you decide you want to quit your traditional roles and fit more into car society, honey, you've got a big storm coming. There's genuinely no way that one can quit being a boat and walk on land unless you're just being towed around. It's so sad. And not to mention that some of these retirements happen because the vehicles have become endangered, not by an injury, but also by becoming obsolete. Dusty's gearbox is out of production, so he has to take it super easy and quit racing. Why do parts even go out of production? Isn't that ethically wrong? They're choosing to kill cars via neglect. Like, wouldn't you need to keep a giant museum of rare vehicle parts until the very last vehicle of that type is documented to be shut down? I feel like the Library of Congress should have every part known to man stored and kept. Wouldn't it make sense to just standardize all the cars and only change the outer parts? And so you can save on having a diversity of car parts? Would that be car eugenics? I don't know. What they're doing is car eugenics. They're waiting for old parts to die out in favor of better technology. Or is that just very fast evolution? Maybe the Cars world has already come to terms with their own mortality. Maybe they don't want to become a ship of Theseus. Maybe most vehicles on this planet would prefer to die out rather than just to be replaced continually until they're an entirely different thing. If I stick to my hermit crab theory, even if the mechanical parts are replaced, the soft organic tissue inside of them is not safe. Still, I think they should create copy-paste parts for everyone equally. And when updates roll out, everyone's required to get maintenance. Like vaccines. I mean, do they not already have to get state inspections like it's some doctor's appointment? Don't they need to update their registration? Wait, so when cars die, do they bury them in the ground? That's stupid. Do they take them to the junkyard to get crushed into a cube and then they bury that? Or do they just incinerate it? We've never seen a car funeral, but there's a hearse in one of the Cars on the Road episodes for some reason. Money doesn't make sense in this world either. We hear it mentioned a couple of times, but we never see coins or bills of any sort. Mater asks McQueen to borrow money at one point in Cars 3. Like, he uses the word dollars, I'm pretty sure, but how would they even exchange it? Do they have banks where they keep their currency? When Radiator Springs was at its lowest economic point, how the hell were they making any money? Don't they need money to buy themselves more oil? Flo needs regular shipments of gas at her gas station. Ramon needs more paints. They all must have electricity bills. Is there welfare in the Cars universe? Because how is this town still running? Or is there a government subsidy of oil given to every citizen so that they don't starve? When one of them broke down, how would anyone have ordered parts to fix them back up? Doc has a garage, he must have needed to order parts. But come to think of it, McQueen, who is clearly a rich race car, strolls into their town, uses up all of their facilities in the first movie, and I never see him pay any of them, not even once. His ass gets gas, a paint job, new tires, and he gets to stay in the hotel, and never once mentions paying these clearly struggling small town business owners. Quick question, where do cars live? Because some cars have homes, and others do not. Cars are also the only ones we see who have physical houses. In the Planes movie, the racers get the privilege of having their own airplane hangar dressing room. In the main Cars movie, the Cars world must be going through a housing crisis because Lightning McQueen has no house. Everyone in Radiator Springs except Doc seem to live inside of their own business. Sarge lives in the surplus building. Sally maybe lives in the hotel lobby. I assume it's the same for the rest of them. Mater straight up sleeps outside. That's probably why he's the only rusty one out of the entire gang. He does not have a roof over his head. McQueen uses Mac as his shelter, which is really weird. There's even one shot where Mac himself is sleeping under a bridge while they're traveling across the country. A justice for Mac. Does McQueen have a house at all? He's always touring around during his races, but doesn't he have an off season? Maybe he just prefers to live from hotel to hotel. Wait, does McQueen have parents? We obviously see family units in the Cars universe. We see children with parents, but we rarely see children on the road with the parents. And I don't think a single main character or side character in this entire franchise mentions their parents. No, yes. Francesco Bernoulli from Cars 2 mentioned his mom. So McQueen could have parents. He has to, right? Okay, there's something I have to tell you. Lightning McQueen's real name is not Lightning McQueen. His real name is Montgomery McQueen. Freaking Monty McQueen. I didn't know where else to put this in the script. I'm sorry. And yes, you'll have to finish this video with that dark knowledge inside of you. Okay, we're finally winding down on this section. I had like one last thing that didn't fit anywhere into my script. In the Planes movie, there is a German car that is depicted to have dissociative identity disorder. The car transforms into a plane. He completely switches personalities depending on if he's a car or a plane. So, what the fuck? The tech in the Cars universe makes no sense, like everything else. Some of it is advanced to the likes we've never seen, and some of it is, yeah. In the first movie, cars have giant cameras. Why? Okay, I get it. They're holding it with, like, a stick attached to their rim, but how are they even triggering the shutter? How are they pressing the start and stop buttons for recording? Why not just have a mounted camera on their hood? Like a dash cam, but on the outside. But they do have Wi-Fi, and they can take phone calls. McQueen has a cool pedal-operated phone inside of Mac's trailer. Phones are all over the place. There are times where they can take a call with, like, psychic powers, and other times where they need to hit a button, and then there's other times where there's a payphone with individual buttons on it, like in Cars 2. How is Mater using this? How did he dial the number to the news station? And then I swear at some point there's an old telephone booth that's been outfitted with video chat features in Radiator Springs. What? Mater and McQueen have FaceTimed each other on digital tablets? Touchscreen tablets? How are they operating a touchscreen tablet? Unless they use... Oh. Wouldn't it make more sense for these cars to somehow communicate via radio waves so they can, like, hear each other transmit messages? In Cars 3, they're so advanced that they can have Bluetooth installed inside of their bodies. In Cars 2, they have vending machines where you can buy your own organs and appendages, so that's cool, I guess. Legal? Maybe not. This one shot in Cars on the Road has a forklift typing on the tiniest laptop, which shouldn't be physically possible. And we learn in Planes that they do have websites, which suggests that vehicles have the option to use computers to access websites. That doesn't make any sense. You'd think a car-based world would just have all of its information blasted to you on, like, digital billboards that you pass on the road. The amount of times that I laughed every time I saw a newspaper clipping that animators always love to use as an easy vehicle for backstory, pun intended, but just who cut the newspaper clippings out? Forklifts can do a lot, but at the end of the day, they don't actually have thumbs. Sometimes the animators were just so hard-pressed that they would straight up give a car some type of robotic arm prosthesis, because you can feel them giving up on how to make this franchise live in the realm of realism. Speaking of suspension of disbelief, Cars 2 is evil and horrible. Spy cars can create fake shells for themselves, they can change their Mario Kart loadout, they can have the stupidest gadgets, they name drop iPhones at one point, and the big baddie of the movie has a camera that can explode people from afar. Giant magnets, trackers, flying cars, God help me. I don't even have a good way to end this section. I have nothing to say. If anyone even cares, I looked at their periodic table of elements, and all the elements are the same except for one. It's dubnium, or it should be dubnium, but instead they have an element with HA as the abbreviation. Does anyone care? Does anyone even care? Obviously, racing is pretty popular in the Cars universe. Besides racing, we do see that planes have a popular sport, and that's... oh, racing. Okay. To be fair, they do like doing aerial stunt shows as well. We do see a variety of entertainment besides racing. Demolition derbies, sumo wrestling matches, geisha performances, circus acts, monster truck rallies, matador shows, concerts, hardcore punk rock cults that live out in the desert. Still, the majority of attendees are cars. Even in Planes, a hefty portion of the audience watching the aerial shows are cars. Even the commentators are cars and forklifts. Planes don't get to be commentators on plane sports, and I think that's ridiculous. I don't think any other vehicle besides cars and vans are even allowed to enter the arena to watch car racing. In Planes 2, the helicopter dude used to work on a TV set as a stuntman for a reality TV show, so that's cool. No idea if boats can ever go into the entertainment industry. Although, obviously, being an athlete or a movie star isn't all fun and games. Blade's coworker apparently crashed and died horribly while doing one of his own helicopter stunts. And in the first Planes movie, Dusty only gets into the World Racing Championships because another plane was caught with steroid jet fuel. You heard me right. The fact that they have to do fuel testing for athletes is wild. But it does confirm another source of entertainment in the Cars world. Illegal drugs! I just know that damn hippie van has his tent chock full of some mind-altering substances. Besides event-based entertainment, the Cars world has restaurants, bars, chill places to hang out and be a car or a truck or a horrifying amalgamation of a car and a plane. Not much to say about these, except in the first movie, when Radiator Springs has all of its neon lights booted back up, I paused to read some of the signage. And, what is Mr. Curb Feeler? What is Mrs. Muffler? Just what kind of establishments are these? Oh, and in the second Planes movie, there's a fucking restaurant called Honkers. This section is going to be rapid fire because the cultural implications of the Cars and Planes movies are insane. They have an Elvis impersonator camper, so Elvis existed. Because different countries exist in this world, different cultures also exist, and that means so does cultural appropriation. Thank you, Mater. I talked about this a little bit in my first video, but the vehicular heterosexuality is truly so baffling. Like, why do they use the word woman, which is derived from man, but the Cars universe doesn't have any humans? And shouldn't even know what the word man or human or woman even means. They also use words like girlfriend and boyfriend. Why is car marriage necessary at all? They for some reason have the ability to hold items such as pencils and paintbrushes. And Mater knows how to write English words. The freaking alphabet exists in this world, which is absolutely insane. You'd think a car society would have developed a tire tread based set of hieroglyphics or something. Religion makes no sense. They have a Pope-mobile that is Catholic, but the Pope-mobile has its own Pope-mobile. Catholicism and Carstianity suggests a car Jesus that died for our car sins. But what brand of car would he be? Or would he be like a forklift or something that nobody would have guessed? Is there a Garden of Eden? A car god? I don't think they have angels though, because the only entity that came to greet Mater when he died was the speed demon, so I wonder which way Mater was about to go. In Planes, Dusty also ends up with what he thinks is heaven, but his version is a misty mountaintop with wise monks giving cryptic, vague answers to his questions. But it just turns out that he landed in Nepal. But like, would Planes believe in a car god or a plane god? When Dusty meets Ishani the plane from India, she says her people believe that they will be recycled into tractors at the end of their life, so tractors are sacred in India. Do different vehicles have different deities? If anything, you think a deity in this universe would have to be some Swiss Army knife looking amalgamation of every vehicle imaginable for maximum inclusivity. In Cars 3, Ramon mentions the Sistine Chapel. So was there a car Michelangelo? Was there a car Da Vinci? Is there a car Mona Lisa somewhere around here? There's an entire Cars on the Road episode about dinosaurs, where dinosaurs were vehicles as well, but I don't think this is canon, you guys. I'll talk more about it in my theory section. I think they just made that shit up. But there's a Stonehenge called Carhenge. What? You're telling me that the Cars universe still has states named California and Florida, but they decided to call Stonehenge Carhenge? Alright, there are cryptids in this universe too, but it's the same cryptids that we have. They have Bigfoot, the Chupacabra, and Mothman. The writers decided not to change those names, but they decided to change Stonehenge to Carhenge. The Chupacabra apparently is the monster who siphons your fuel. As for the other two cryptids, I don't know what they do in the car universe. Also at some point, Mater name drops Tesla, so Teslas exist, which means no. The Planes movie suddenly references a ton of random stuff, like David and Goliath from the Bible, Old Yeller, Greek mythology. Mater's tall tales are stupid and I hate them, so I don't even want to acknowledge that there are aliens. And again, I'm convinced this entire series happened while there was a major gas leak occurring at Radiator Springs. Therefore, everything we see in Mater's tall tales is a mass hallucination. But Cars on the Road does confirm that cars are scared of aliens. And also it has ghosts in that series, so ghosts are real, which means that they have souls. And even though I hate Mater's tall tales, I thought it was funny that Area 51 existed in this universe. But I found it very disconcerting that Disney chose to have all of the US Area 51 scientists have German accents. That says a lot. In Radiator Springs, the courthouse has pictures of founding fathers with wigs on. There has to be a president of the United States because there's a movie set in the series where Mater is an actor playing the part of the president. So did cars cross the Atlantic to settle into colonies? Carlonies? Was there a car Alexander Hamilton? But hey, at least I can sleep at night knowing that in the Cars universe, there's no such thing as early colonial settlers invading the land and forcing assimilation of native... Oh no. The Native American stereotype helicopter with feather headdress rotors can't hurt you. Okay, but what does this mean? Really? Were helicopters the original vehicles in America and cars took over? Or were there a ton of different vehicles before European settlers came and the colonization of America just made sure that cars were the dominant population? Was there a car Atlantic slave trade? Answer me, Pixar! Were the slaves on the ships or were they the fucking ships? Were cars oppressing other forms of transportation before a vehicular civil rights movement happened? I've never seen anyone point this out before. There's an African-American car in Cars 3. River Scott. He's based off of Wendell Scott, the first African-American man to compete in NASCAR in the 1950s. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, just because this car is based off of a black racing legend doesn't mean it's a real car of color. You're wrong. You're fucking wrong. In this scene, in Cars 3, River is sitting next to Louise Nash, a character based off Louise Smith, one of the first well-known female NASCAR racers. And in this scene, the both of them casually mention to Lightning and Cruz that they simply, quote, weren't welcome in the racing world, end quote, confirming that not only were women discriminated against in racing, but why the hell would River not be let into the racing world in the Cars universe? You're telling me that this car, what does this mean? Car sexism and car racism. How can you even tell a car's race at all? What did the writers expect to do with this scene? How the fuck is there an implied African-American car? Why would Cars even adopt racism? Sometimes this franchise just creates parallel, shined up caricatures of real historical figures, and it tries to pretend that they're instilling knowledge on impressionable audiences when, like, a 7-year-old isn't gonna hear the name River Scott and see a damn car and then go, ah, yes, just like Wendell Scott, the first African-American NASCAR racer. These movies are so polished that Pixar is too scared to do anything except for making a nod and a wink to the vaguest concepts of real-ass people, just sprinkling in lazy activism against discrimination in a movie about sentient vehicles, the likes of a fanfiction AU of our real world. What is it even teaching us? Please tell me if you watched this as a kid and it had any significant impact on you, because I would be delighted to hear it. Now that I'm pissed off, let's talk about disasters. Not many disasters are seen in the Cars movies that aren't directly caused by a character. We don't know much about earthquakes, floods, tornadoes, any natural occurrences. Of course, there are a ton of wildfires because the second Planes movie is about a firefighting plane and therefore fires need to happen. My real fascination lies in the small disasters of daily life for these vehicles. If you get into a little fender bender with somebody, what happens? Is that a health insurance problem? An auto insurance problem? Is it personal assault? I think there's a billboard somewhere advertising car life insurance, but what does that cover? Most of the deaths we see in the franchise are off-screen deaths of aging vehicles, or they're violent murders. Attempts to toss a car into an ocean and let it sink into the bottom of the sea and drown, I guess. Planes knocking off each other's parts, and oh, well, I guess Dusty also fell into the ocean and almost drowned, I guess. But it's shockingly violent for a series of kids movies, man. Casinos full of mobsters, crime rings, illegal black market of organs and body parts. Every bad guy is equipped with real guns, with real bullets. At some point, Finn McMissile literally crushes a man to death. There are explosions, cars that get exploded, cars that get crunched, cars that get kidnapped and gassed. I guess cars can get put into prison because after all, there's plenty of police cars. In Planes too, there's like the Transportation Management Safety Team that operates like the FBI. So the agent tells Dusty that their town requires one or more functional firefighting vehicles at all times. So there are inspections that happen and there's regulations that need to be followed. There's an airport scene where cars are forced to go through metal detectors. A lot of people have said that increased security at airports only happened after a certain date in history in America, so the existence of TSA at all implies terrorism as a whole. If the planes are sentient in this world, then the fucking planes did it! There's also a shockingly high presence of military vehicles. I don't know why the Cars world would even have military forces, unless relations between the countries aren't as pretty and shiny as we think they are. Sarge, of course, is a World War II veteran or a fanatic. It's unclear. He has a ton of army supplies. His license plate has like World War II on it. I don't know why anybody would want to stop by his army surplus store in the small town of Radiator Springs. I think Sarge and anybody who visits Sarge's business should be put on a watch list. If World War II exists, then World War I existed. And that means there was an assassination of Archduke Ferdinand. If World War II is a real concept in this universe, then we all know what that means. In the first Planes movie, they start the race at the JFK airport. So if there was a JFK for president, we all know what that means. Skipper from the Planes movie was in a war. It's never even explained properly. He was a fighting plane in the Navy shooting at these like ships, but we never see if these ships are sentient or not. It's angled very carefully. So although these planes are sentient creatures shooting at the ships don't have eyes or faces. So are they fighting ships? Or are the cars on the ships? Are they freaking fighting humans even? Anyway, this plane has PTSD and nobody knows what enemy his squadron was fighting. Okay, enough! Enough! Enough questions, enough observations. It's time to go into theories. I'll go ahead and roll out the first major theories that I saw in the comments on my first video. Those of you who pleaded, begged for the entire Cars universe to just be left alone. A lot of you said things like, it's just a parallel universe where instead of humans there are cars, that's all. And some of you said, I think these creatures should be judged on their own merits and we should stop comparing them to humans. And to the both of ya, I say incorrect. Absolutely unacceptable. I will stop comparing Pixar's cars to humans when they stop wearing Warby Parker lenses, alright? If I'm not meant to compare cars to the human world, then why do they have currency? Why do they have a gender binary? Why do they have human food? Why would they have a mattress? Why do they have racism? I'm sorry, but let's be so serious right now. The car world mimics our world for a reason, and I'm here to get to the bottom of it. So let's move on to the main two theories I think are the most viable. If we completely rule out my previous anatomical hermit crab theory, then I could see the argument for a grimdark, evil Toy Story gone wrong narrative. Maybe Pixar's cars as vehicles one day suddenly got hit with a Doofenshmirtz Alivenator beam and they all gained sentience at once. Maybe they're just cars with faces, but the insides are normal car insides. Maybe these cars had a giant uprising against their human owners, wiped out the entire human race. In fact, maybe that's the war that Skipper was fighting in. Maybe some humans are still trapped inside of these cars and they're wheeling around decaying cadavers that we'll never see. Maybe they even took the names of their owners. McQueen, where's the real Montgomery, huh? So logically, if we go with this theory, all vehicles are evil, they replace humans, and rebuilt their world to reflect vehicle kind. They tried to establish new economies, new practices, but they still ultimately became who they hated. They all basically act like human beings, save for the absolute necessities like having to drink oil and get fixed up at the shop. This would explain the human mattress, the human mannerisms that we see throughout the franchise, the monuments, the languages, the culture. Maybe they kept human food around as delicacies, as some sort of sick joke. It would explain why they stick to binary genders and human concepts of romance and marriage. This explains why they try to have bathrooms, why they've manufactured stupid human accessories for themselves. It's an evil mockery of the human race. But it still doesn't really explain why there aren't any animals. Like no real birds, no real insects, no real livestock. Just tractors and bulldozers and Volkswagen Beetles. Also, why do tractors not get the same sentience as cars? I mean, in Toy Story, Jesse's horse can't talk for whatever reason, so is that the same situation? Why would the Beetles have wings if that was the case, though? How would this even happen if only existing objects came to life? Even if these used to be like little toy cars, like, then how wings? Also, this theory wouldn't explain baby cars at all, unless these are like some form of Little Tikes toys that are now permanently stuck in perpetual childhood, like turning a baby into a vampire. Evil Toy Story theory is okay, but since I do have an attachment to my hermit crab anatomical theory, I'm gonna go ahead and say that this theory isn't my favorite, because I do believe that the cars are organic on the inside and not just like empty, possessed vehicles. So, my last video, I argued that if vehicles have faces, a specific diet, an excretory system, mortality, then they are organic creatures. Then I bestowed this gift upon the world, my diagram of Mr. Montgomery McQueen in the full flesh. I argued that these weird blob fish simply picked the shell and grew over time, replacing said shell until they reached full adulthood. But where did these blobfish originate from? They're aliens. That's the only thing I could come up with. My theory is that these little critters were out in space doing their critter thing, and they spotted Earth from afar. Maybe they sat and observed Earth for a very long time. Maybe they decided to approach Earth after a couple millennia. And you know, take over for fun. Now, whether humans were still on Earth when they took over is to be debated. I'm a lover, not a fighter, so in my heart of hearts, I want to say the aliens just found an empty Earth where the human race and all the animals were wiped out from some silent deadly force, thus leaving a planet of empty buildings and empty cars behind where the hermit crab-like aliens could be like, oh, It's free real estate. Then after touching down on Earth, maybe the aliens started picking up books, brushing up on their human history. Maybe they thought, oh hey, humans have a pretty sweet deal, and it looks like they tried to use their cars as their shells, so let's keep doing this, and let's make even more cars. Let's get the whole colony down here, baby. Thus, we have a slow progression where these aliens congregate onto Earth and begin intense human roleplay. Maybe in the history books, they saw warships, so they were like, ah yeah, let's go grab one of those too. Hey you, Blorgtron 351, we need you to go grab a commercial airplane. Hey you, you're Gonglank, can you come down here and inhabit one of those tractors? But if you do, you're not allowed to speak at all because they had these things called cows. So you're only allowed to moo as a cow. Basically, I'm arguing that aliens came and did some hardcore LARPing sessions and tried to appropriate human culture in the most thorough way that they could. They're literally human reenactors. Maybe this included finding old footage of NASCAR races and seeing that the cars were doing all sorts of cool stuff, and they're like, oh my god, vehicles seem to run the world, so clearly humans were just secondary to the vehicles. I argue that the car's history does not actually go back to the 1930s like Lizzie. I think these aliens would have landed, I don't know, in like 1980 at the earliest. And then by the time the Cars events happened, it's like 2010. Because I think Lizzie could just be pretending to have all these memories from the 1930s. But in reality, she could just be an alien who grabbed a vintage Ford Model T from like a museum and found her way into Radiator Springs. So now she's dedicated to the bit of being an old lady for the rest of her life. This explains why the car of the first woman in racing and the car of the first black man in racing were cars that said they weren't allowed in, because technically they're right. The vehicles weren't allowed in because the owners weren't allowed in. So they can pretend that they were discriminated against even though they don't understand how that works. In my personal theory, I think these hermit crab aliens are just hardcore history buffs. And then for the prominent figures who used to be humans, like for the Queen and the Pope, these aliens just decided, let's just manufacture a Queen car and a Pope car so that we can fill those gaps in. This is why they have family units. I kind of hinted at it earlier, but I do think that a good explanation for the different types of vehicles would be entirely based on whatever the aliens wanted. I think some aliens wanted to be cars, and maybe other aliens were like, no thanks, if I could choose to be anything, I'm gonna choose to be a Roomba with eyes and live out my entire life sucking floors. You know what, if that's the case, then I guess that solves all of the vehicular discrimination too. Boats and cranes and blimps and whatnot do not care if they have less rights in the Cars universe because they ultimately chose to go with these body styles. The only discrimination would be if these organisms procreated and then had a child that had no say in what vehicle they wanted to be. Then that would be messed up. So I don't have a for sure timeline of how many generations deep these aliens are into their permanent LARPing session. And do the next generation of Cars know that they're not native to Earth? Do they know what humans are at all? And there's still one big problem with this theory. The toys. The tiny beetles with real wings makes no sense. The wooden plane bird makes no sense. I can't find explanations for those. I refuse. I'm only human. If you're more interested in this version of the copycat theory, feel free to believe in a slightly alternate version where instead of performing a dedicated ode to human history, these hermit crab aliens straight up took over and violently invaded human beings, rewrote history as aggressive tyrants, and then stole human culture for themselves. Maybe it's some sort of perverse puppet show that their species delights in, a strange display of territorial dominance. And they're raising their children to think this is admirable. Boy, if I had a nickel for every franchise that involved aliens arriving on Earth and appearing as cars, I'd have two. Let's be real, the Pixar Cars universe is like this because it's a children's movie made by humans that projects human features onto objects to get us to feel sympathy for the characters. Plus, it make funny joke. But as always, I like overanalyzing things because it's fucking fun and hilarious. It needs to be said though that I love this franchise. I love this stupid series of movies that makes no sense but has shiny, pretty animations. Overthinking all of it is just one of the ways that I personally have fun engaging with content that I like. Shout out to these friends who left some great comments on the last video that helped me make sure to examine things from a ton of different angles. That is it for Cars. Thank you so much for watching. Either scream at me or scream with me in the comments. Like the video, share it around, let the brain rot spread. Subscribe if you enjoyed it and want to see future content that I make, and maybe support me on my new Patreon. Again, thank you so much, and you will hear from me again in the future. Yes, that is a threat. Goodbye. 2024 and still no confirmed gay couples in the Pixar Cars franchise. Well, I'm breaking my silence. If female cars have thicker windshields as mascara, then in the first movie, Lightning McQueen fantasizes about getting kissed by these two cars, but they don't have the eyelash thing. So these must be beautiful drag queen cars that weren't AFAA, assigned female at assembly. Also, this one purple baby car with the airplane accessory must have gay fathers. Even Maddie is sitting in between two male cars. So, gay fathers. Cars on the Road, episode 9. These two cars are at the wedding. They're chatting it up. Neither of them have the eyelash mascara shit. We don't hear the other car's voice, so we can't confirm gender. Gay cars. Gay cars confirmed. These two goth circus cars are apparently very controversial in the Pixar Cars wiki community because they have the same last name. Their names rhyme. So I thought they were sisters at first, but then I saw that the wiki locked both of their pages from being edited to reduce skirmishes. That's the first time I've ever seen a wiki page being locked. And so I headed over to watch the episode again, and turns out the subtitles have one of the cars calling the other babe. So I was like, oh, lesbian when? Goth lesbian when? But then I cranked up my volume a lot. And it genuinely sounds like the car says May and not babe, because her sister's name is May. So I think they're sisters and not wives, for sure. I'm sorry, goth lesbians. You'll get them next time.